Okay, this is the Democratic Socialist Libertarian. I'm here with Nick Brana with the Movement for a People's Party. So, could you just kind of tell us what that actually is about?
Certainly. So we are the leading nonprofit calling for the creation of a major new party in the United States. Almost 2 out of 3 Americans are now demanding a new party in America out of a loss of confidence, complete loss of confidence in the Democrats and Republicans to represent working people. And so it's essential that we be able to, as we're here at Left Forum, and we organized a panel this week that included Gail McLaughlin, leading independents like Tim Canova, Gail McLaughlin, David Zuckerman, and Algier Hawkins to discuss just that, to strategize about how we as the left are going to provide an alternative to what the far right is trying to lure people into, because if we don't give people an authentic alternative, working people, then they will continue to fall for the Trumps of the country.
It seems that the current corporatocracy has kind of stacked the deck against third parties. How do you hope to overcome the natural obstacles of finance and, the election rigging we saw with Bernie Sanders? What some strategies that you hope to implement to kind of give a third party a chance in kind of, I guess, what we call a rigged system?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it gets to in order for any approach to be successful that stands for working people on the left, it needs to really be able to inspire the enthusiasm of working people. And you cannot do that by working within the corporate parties when you have almost 2/3 of the country calling for an alternative. So that is the first step. You need to be able to inspire people. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what your approach is, and it doesn't matter what the barriers are. You will never be able to mobilize the people required to succeed. So there are the establishment parties have erected substantial barriers both inside their parties and outside their parties to change. What I discovered as the national political outreach coordinator for Bernie Sanders in 2016 on his presidential campaign, and as a founder of Our Revolution and its first electoral manager, was that the Democratic Party, in those capacities, I worked with Democratic Party insiders. It was my job to lobby the superdelegates for Bernie Sanders. I discovered in that capacity that the Democratic Party did not have the internal democratic mechanisms required to take it over or to reform it, that it was insufficiently democratic as an institution. So therefore, the prospect or the idea of reforming the Democratic Party or taking it over was about as ludicrous as the workers taking over Walmart or McDonald's. The mechanisms simply don't exist within it. And so that is what we need to address when we create a new party. We need a new party that stands for working people, that is willing to support Medicare for all, free public college, getting money out of politics, ending the wars around the world that the U.S. is engaged in, dismantling the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex. We need a party that stands for all of these things authentically. The Democrats have never truly stood for them, and we need a party that is internally structured democratically as well, as the Democrats and the Republicans don't represent those democratic systems inside. The party needs to be democratic in and of itself. We have the models. Most people in the country are calling for it. We know how to do it. And until we do it, the right is going to monopolize that alternative space. People are looking for alternative systems now, and until we give it to them on the left, the right is going to continue to dominate.
Yes, absolutely. And what do you think we could do to broaden the broaden the tent, to make the tent larger? You mentioned like a lot of people supporting Trump and right wing. I think a lot of working class people who are middle class, are kind of alienated by leftist terminology or socialism, communist. But yet they, if you really poll them, they have the same concerns: health care, a livable wage. How do you think we should reach out and try to get those people?
Yeah, that's a great point. The way that we communicate is paramount because, as Ralph Nader and so many others have noted, the language and the labels act as barriers that the half of the country that calls itself conservative will automatically write you off when you use this kind of terminology of the left progressive. And so we can speak amongst ourselves this way, but we need to be very conscious in our outreach that we are sticking to the issues very hard. It is something that people like Ralph have called for many years, and it's something that Bernie Sanders actually showed the success of. He stuck to the issues. He went to Liberty University, one of the most conservative universities in the country. He got thunderous applause simply speaking to the issues. He didn't change anything, didn't moderate his speech whatsoever. He just avoided the labels. So that's what we need to do as well in order to be successful. Another thing that I'll say is that in the panel that we hosted earlier, talking about things that the left needs to do in order to be successful, it's necessary to be cognizant, like we've talked about before, of the stakes technologically and what is upcoming. That is something that is, again, very absent from our analysis as the left. And so we are now effectively post-scarcity. So in terms of our potential, for much of human history, people struggled and nations struggled to provide enough. There were not enough resources to go around. Now we have the technology to make it so that everyone can have housing, food, water, education, healthcare. Everyone can have those basic necessities of life, live on Maslow's third level of hierarchy of needs,
self-actualization,
or even above.
Is even possible now.
Exactly, it could be. And so there is this economic and political system that we live in is so distorting our potential technologically as a society that it is becoming very dangerous, because on the other side of that abundance potential is that while you have the ability to provide for everyone at the same time at a level that has never existed before in human history, you also have the advent of technologies that are more destructive than we have ever had in human history as well. So that's existentially threatening technologies. Nuclear weapons were the first, but they were not the last. We're developing technologies now that make nuclear weapons look tame. And the risk with this as well is that not only will they be even more destructive, they will be even more available and accessible to a greater number of people. And so we are in a race against time as a civilization to be able to, can we utilize and apply the benefits of that technology while avoiding the risks that come with it as well. And if we remain in this kind of capitalistic, hyper polarized, competitive type, very sectarian world, then we are going to fall on the negative side of those technologies. And I fear that we don't have long, even as a species, to survive before we succumb to those worst impulses of ours.
We may actually be approaching Fermi's paradox. I mean, this might be it, reaching that, like you said, that stage of technological evolution that determines whether you destroy yourself or you move on to a Kardashev, more advanced Type 1 or Type 2 civilization. So I think this is becoming a matter of like survival. And I think maybe that's the way we were saying how we relate to people is, do you want to live do you want to survive as a species? Is there things that we could do to kind of change the paradigm where we no longer have to think in this terms of scarcity and these old systems that have really created so much ecological and economic devastation? So I hope you succeed in your party, and I thank you for doing the great work that you're doing.
Well, thank you, and please find us at forapeoplesparty.org. And come join us. We're building chapters across the country, determining the best states to start the state party in, working with labor. And so we would love to have you in volunteering with us and in being a part of this.
That's great. Oh, so you heard it. That's where you go. All right. Thanks so much. And it was great talking to you.
Great talking to you. Okay.